It never ends.
Bartucci, what you got?
We got a black male, dead man, Darrell Adams, 22 years old, is the night manager of this joint.
I know it's rough out here for young black males with slavery, racism, no jobs, single-parent families. Don't fucking gesture at me like that. Have some fucking respect.
What if I told you that one of the most brutal and honest crime films ever made was originally supposed to be directed by Martin Scorsese with De Niro in the lead? What if I told you that when Hollywood execs saw the final cut, they were so disturbed by its unflinching realism that they buried it at the box office? And what if I told you that this forgotten masterpiece became the secret blueprint for The Wire, arguably the best crime show ever made? Welcome to Prime Time Throwback. Today, we're getting deep into Clockers from 1995, Spike Lee's controversial street-level tragedy that was too real for Hollywood to handle. This isn't just another hood movie. This is an urban Greek tragedy wrapped in the crack epidemic, and the story behind its creation is just as fascinating as what wound up on screen. From Scorsese's hands to Lee's visions. Let's start with the most shocking thing about Clockers. It was never supposed to be a Spike Lee film. Scorsese had been developing Richard Price's novel for years, with Robert De Niro attached to star as Detective Rocco Klein. But in 1994, Scorsese got the green light for Casino. Suddenly, Clockers became available, and Spike Lee pounced on it like a man possessed. Lee had been trying to get Hollywood to finance serious films about urban decay for years. The transition wasn't smooth. Scorsese's vision was pure noir, shadowy cinematography, and inevitable doom. Lee threw all that out the window. He wanted something raw, more immediate, more angry. Where Scorsese might have given us brutal violence, Lee gave us the ugly truth. Harvey Keitel, Scorsese's ghost in Lee's world. Even though Scorsese stepped away, his fingerprints remained through Harvey Keitel as Detective Rocco Klein. Keitel had been Scorsese's go-to guy since Mean Streets in 1973. But Lee subverted expectations by making Rocco Klein the most morally complex character in the film. Keitel's Klein isn't the righteous cop or corrupt detective we'd seen before. He's a middle-aged white guy trying to navigate a world that he doesn't fully understand. The casting created a fascinating visual bridge between two directorial visions, echoes of Scorsese's urban realism filtered through Lee's more confrontational lens. The 26-year-old who changed urban cinema. Instead of hiring an established cinematographer, Lee handed the camera to 26-year-old Malik Saeed, who had been working as Lee's gaffer. Industry veterans were shocked. Studios became nervous. Saeed brought something no seasoned pro could deliver: the hunger of youth combined with intuitive understanding of the streets. His handheld work gave Clockers documentary-like immediacy that made viewers feel like they were seeing real-life events. While other crime films of the 90s used classical Hollywood lighting, Saeed shot Clockers like he was documenting a war zone. Natural light, unstable camera movement, and a color palette that reflected environmental decay. The book was different, and that was the point. Richard Price's original novel was complex and multi-layered. Strike had a stutter that humanized him. There was a white actor who shadowed a black cop, adding meta-commentary about Hollywood's relationship with street stories. The ending was ambiguous. Lee stripped all that away. He removed Strike's stutter because he felt it would make audiences sympathetic to a drug dealer. He eliminated the actor's subplot to focus purely on the community. More importantly, he changed the ending to something devastating. This wasn't adaptation. This was radical reconstruction. Lee took Price's nuanced novel and turned it into a sledgehammer of social commentary. From fiction to blood and concrete. The novel took place in fictional New Jersey. Lee moved the entire story to Brooklyn's Gowanus projects, transforming the film's impact completely. Lee knew the streets. By setting Clockers in real locations with real history, he made the buildings themselves into characters. The projects weren't just backdrop. They were a living entity that shaped every character's choices. The Gowanus houses had their own rep for violence and drugs. By filming there, Lee was making a statement. This isn't Hollywood fantasy, this is your neighbor's reality. If you're finding these behind-the-scenes revelations as fascinating as I am, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which facts surprised you so far. And make sure you're subscribed to Primetime Throwback, because we dive deep into the stories Hollywood doesn't want you to know about every single week. The opening that haunted audiences. The film's opening sequence, a montage of murder victims over the credits, remains one of cinema's most disturbing. Lee had based these images on actual crime scene photographs he studied at NYPD headquarters. Lee spent hours studying real autopsy photos, but instead of using them directly, he recreated them with actors, ensuring maximum impact without exploiting real victims. the results felt authentic because it was based on authentic horror. This opening was Lee's mission statement. Everything audiences were about to see would be rooted in reality no matter how uncomfortable, pushing the boundaries of realism. Lee's commitment to authenticity reached controversial levels when he cast actual crack addicts in background scenes during drug dealing montages. This wasn't method acting. This was documentary-level realism that made studio execs nervous. The ethical implications were enormous. Was Lee exploiting vulnerable people or giving voice to individuals rendered invisible by society? The decision paid off cinematically. Those background performances have raw authenticity that trained actors can't deliver. But even with all that grit, Lee wasn't done shaking Hollywood, because the ending of Clockers wasn't just rewritten, it was weaponized. An ending that changed everything. In Price's novel, Strike escapes his circumstances by leaving town with Detective Klein after his brother confesses to the murder. It's a hopeful ending that suggests individual redemption is possible even in a corrupt system. Lee's ending, way more devastating. Strike still leaves on the train, but immediately after his departure, we cut to another murder scene. Another young dealer takes Strike's place. The cycle continues endlessly, suggesting that while individuals might escape, the system itself never changes. This wasn't just a different ending. It was a complete philosophical statement about the nature of urban violence. Lee was saying that feel-good individual solutions mean nothing when the underlying problems are unaddressed. According to industry insiders, the ending made execs physically uncomfortable. One distributor reportedly called the film radioactive and quietly slashed the marketing budget. It wasn't just buried at the box office, it was deliberately silenced. Greek tragedy in Brooklyn. Film scholars have compared Clockers to ancient Greek tragedy, and the parallels are unmistakable. The ritualized violence, the sense of fate closing in on the characters, the way blood seems to stain every frame. These are elements that echo Aeschylus and Sophocles. Strike isn't just a street dealer, he's Oedipus in Jordans. He knows the life will destroy him, but he keeps walking toward it anyway. The housing projects function like the palace walls of ancient drama, containing the action and intensifying the pressure until explosion becomes inevitable. This elevates Clockers beyond typical crime cinema into something more universal and timeless. Lee wasn't just making a movie about crack dealers, he was exploring eternal themes of fate, family, and moral responsibility. The hidden blueprint for The Wire. Here's the most important legacy of Clockers. It became the secret DNA of The Wire. Richard Price, who wrote the original novel, later joined David Simon's writing staff for the legendary HBO series. Both works treat drug dealers as complex human beings rather than one-dimensional villains. Both examine the drug trade as a business with its own logic. Both focus on institutional failures that perpetuate violence, and most importantly, both refuse to offer easy solutions. Simon has acknowledged Price's influence on The Wire's development. In many ways, Clockers was the unofficial palette for the greatest crime series ever made, on the institutional failures that perpetuate the cycle of violence. Most importantly, both refuse to offer easy solutions to systemic problems. The Accidental Star. Mickey Pfeiffer's casting as Strike is one of cinema's greatest accident stories. He wasn't an actor, he was just a kid from Harlem who walked into his first ever audition and booked the lead role. Pfeiffer's inexperience worked in the character's favor. His Strike had a naturalistic quality that trained actors might have overthought. The character's obsession with trains and chocolate milk became genuine traits that humanized a potentially unsympathetic protagonist. The scene that revealed a soul. Delroy Lindo's performance as Rodney Little is one of the film's highlights, but audiences never saw his most revealing moment. Lindo filmed a deleted scene where Rodney helps local kids with homework, showing his twisted version of community care. The scene would have added critical depth, showing how even destructive figures can have genuine moments of connection. Lee ultimately cut it because he felt like it might make audiences too sympathetic to a character representing systemic corruption. Before we wrap up, let's talk about Clocker's lasting impact. Richard Price joined The Wire's writing staff, bringing street-level authenticity to TV's greatest crime series. The film was rejected by Oscar voters despite its critical acclaim. Even today, Clockers remains difficult to find on major streaming platforms, as if the industry still considers it too dangerous. Yet it's taught in college courses across the country as essential viewing for understanding America's urban crisis. Clockers failed at the box office in 1995 because it was too real for mainstream audiences and too uncompromising for Hollywood executives. But its influence has only grown over the decades. The film's failure wasn't about quality, it was about timing and courage. Hollywood wasn't ready for a crime film that offered no easy answers, no redemptive violence, and no comfortable distance from its subject matter. If this deep dive down into one of cinema's most underrated masterpieces opened your eyes to something new, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Prime Time Throwback for more stories about the films that changed everything, even when no one was paying attention. Until next time, keep digging deeper into the stories behind the stories.